Is log October 27th, 2014. Folks, we've got another one. Yet another TV show apparently being adapted from comics and superhero properties to television, and this one is a really big deal if it ends up actually happening, despite the fact that I have so many of these things to keep track of, and it's getting absolutely nuts. I really hope that this one is happening, and it's a thing that I've been asking for years, but it's better than what I always wanted, because I always thought that this would make for a really spectacular movie, and thought that Warner's was unlikely to ever greenlight it because it doesn't have Superman in it, because people want to go and see superhero movies and they wouldn't take a risk on doing the background, on doing the Krypton stuff, despite the fact that there is some inherently really fascinating drama there, some really interesting politics, some really cool stuff paralleling the fall of real civilizations in our history. Apparently David Goyer is in the middle of developing a Krypton show for TV, and this is really exciting stuff. We don't know yet if this is really happening. This is rumor territory right now, along with X-Men, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about whether or not I thought it was a good idea, and what they might do with it, and all of that. I think it's very likely that this is happening. You look at the success so far of Gotham and all these other superhero TV shows that are starting to crop up, and the ones that are on right now so far all doing pretty well. And it seems like Warner's has a strike while the iron is hot kind of philosophy right now, and if they're all really good, I think there's room for more. I do wish, I guess I'll go ahead and say this right out the gate before I get into the Krypton stuff, I do wish that DC would do what Marvel is doing with the Netflix shows and start to embrace new media, because I am starting to worry. Vince and I just a couple weeks ago did a GNN about the possible superhero TV implosion here in a few years, because there's so many of these things, and are people going to experience burnout? Are people just there's gonna be too many for people to keep track of, and it's gonna spread people too thin that even with people picking and choosing, there might not be enough of us to keep a lot of them alive, and we'll have kind of an implosion. We were both really positive about it, saying that if they're all really good, there's room for them. That there are so many different kinds of stories and different genres of stories that you can tell with these properties that there's really no reason not to keep doing them and to have a whole bunch at once, as long as they're all of a certain quality. But the problem that I'm starting to experience a little bit, or afraid that I'm going to experience, is keeping up with things week to week and being expected to. That's a commitment, you know, and it's more of a commitment keeping up with this stuff week to week, I think, than it is to put it all out at once and ask people to binge it, because then it's just a really long movie that you can watch over a couple days and, you know, stop every now and again and go make a sandwich or take a nap. And with a TV on every week, it's sort of like the difference between reading single issues and buying stuff in trade. Now, certainly people have the option to wait, but they're not expected to. What I mean is, yeah, we can wait and pick up the DVDs or watch them online or whatever, but if enough people aren't watching week to week, that's going to affect the production of these shows, and we're not taking into consideration people buying the DVDs later. We're not making these like movies. We're not making these where we're selling them. We're expecting ticket sales, we're expecting ratings, and if they don't get the ratings, and I mean, we're starting to count in DVR and stuff, which is good, but if a lot of people are waiting, then, to be able to watch it all at once, those people aren't being counted, even if they are, like, really huge fans of a property and they just prefer to wait for trade, like people do with comics. And so I think some of these shows really need to go to that format in the first place, also because that affects the way these shows are plotted, and when you're when you're writing for week to week, a couple things happens. First of all, we're seeing already with I think especially Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we're seeing some shows that are getting your typical 22, 24 episode season, and maybe you don't have stories that are big enough to warrant that many episodes, so there's filler episodes, and there's things that kind of slow the pacing down, and people are, I think, wanting more of the long-form storytelling. You put all these episodes together and you get kind of a movie sort of stories, and like, I'm not saying there's not room for that kind of format still, I just think that it's a little bit of a harder sell now, and I also feel like with some shows, I'm seeing writers and producers that almost would, I keep feeling like they would almost prefer to be doing these shorter 13-episode, tighter seasons, and they have to find a way to stretch their season in order to go to television. And I think certain properties, especially this one, especially Krypton, make a lot more sense for shorter, tighter seasons, and also to have a cap-off date. I don't know about this one going on network TV, and I'm really hoping it doesn't. I hope, and I suspect that if Bleeding Cool is guessing that Gotham has a lot to do with this, and I'm with them, and if that's the case, then Warner's is going to want this on regular broadcast television. I don't think that's the right place for it. It is so hard on broadcast TV to know if you're going to get renewed. And even though these superhero shows are doing really well right now, after Arrow, you can't just straight up start making a show and go, oh, we're good. We don't have to worry that we'll get canceled. Especially if this comes out at a point when so many of these come out that maybe some of them aren't great, maybe some people really are experiencing burnout. I mean, we're really going to have to kind of see what happens, despite the fact that many of these are all very, very, very different kinds of things. And by the way, let me tack on real quick that one of the reasons I'm very excited about the idea of a Krypton show is that we don't have a lot of really great, solid science fiction on TV right now, and this could really scratch that itch, I think, and I think TV kind of needs that right now. So we're finding that the comic source material is able to help us fill in some of those gaps of stuff that we don't really have on TV right now, which I think is really kind of exciting. But a show like this, I think, needs to have a set end date. I think it needs to have a long-term plan. This seems like a Babylon 5 or Battlestar Galactica kind of thing to me. Obviously, Krypton is a show, if they're doing what I would assume you would do with a Krypton show, which is Jor-El, Zod, maybe Zor-El, those kinds of characters, leading up to the fall of an empire, leading or the fall of a society, whatever kind of Krypton you're doing. And you would figure that just like Clark Kent putting his cape on at the end of Smallville, or Bruce Wayne probably putting his cape on at the end of Gotham, depending on how they end up handling that show, you'd figure that the last episode of this show would be the destruction of Krypton. The difference between this and those shows, and the reason I'm so excited about the possibility of this, is that with those shows, there's not exactly an obvious endpoint. Like, you can kind of keep pushing off forever the superhero putting his costume on, and there's not immediately a story there. You have to kind of, I mean, there's some inherently interesting things, but they don't feel like stories that need to be told necessarily. Krypton does to me. I mean, Jor-El is a really, really interesting character, and he's been characterized in different ways, and many of them have been really kind of fascinating. And I have always wanted to see something like this, but I feel like you've got to, kind of like Rome, like I'm really, ever since I heard about this, I've been thinking about the old HBO Rome show, where the idea with that show was we'll start from a particular point in history, and then we'll go all the way to the fall of Rome. I don't think they ever got there. I didn't watch past the first season, but I think it only got a couple. But what you could do with Krypton is decide, okay, we're going to start from this point, and we're going to play with the politics of the society, and play with the culture, and deal with a lot of those themes that Man of Steel was dealing with, except it was too truncated, and a lot of the really cool ideas that they came up with for that didn't make it past the cutting room floor and didn't make it into the movie. And by the way, if you haven't looked into the special features for Man of Steel, I really suggest that you do that, because there's so many really cool ideas about the culture and things that inform the notion of a society that falls apart because people aren't allowed to be individuals anymore, and everybody kind of ends up being pre-programmed, and this quest for perfection makes us lose what it is that makes us human, or Kryptonian, but they're basically humans. And a lot of the stuff that would have really pushed those ideas and really brought all that to the forefront just didn't make it into the movie. It was really kind of unfortunate. We only got 15 minutes of it, and this would really be the place to really flesh out a lot of those ideas. In a perfect world, I would almost want to see this be Man of Steel continuity, because like I said, I think there is inherently a story there, and I don't think we got to see enough of it. I really don't think that this is the same thing as, oh, well, we know what happens already, you know, well, we know that the planet's gonna blow up, what is the point of telling the story? I feel that way sometimes with prequels, where it's like, I didn't necessarily need to see Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader. There is a story there that could be told really well. It's not a thing I ever felt like I really needed to see, but the difference with this in Star Wars is that in Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker is talked about a lot, but we don't ever see him. Every time we do Superman stuff, we see all these flashbacks with Jor-El, and I always found myself latching on more to that character than I did even to Superman, and kind of wanted to see his story fleshed out and see what exactly happened between him and Zod and all of those things. And I really like the Krypton stuff in Man of Steel, despite the fact that some of the best ideas they had didn't actually make the movie. Obviously, you probably wouldn't be able to get Russell Crowe on TV. He's a little bit too A-list for that. He probably wouldn't do it. But I think in a perfect world, it would be cool to see it there. One of the things that I'm finding really weird about this whole thing, if this ends up happening, is that we know that Supergirl is coming. And two different Superman continuities at the same time on television, both with different Kryptonian lore. I don't know, man. I mean, once again, if they weren't both on TV at the same time, it might be okay. If, like, one of them was like a miniseries and the other one was a long-running show, or one was a movie and the other was a show, I could kind of see it, but I'm just saying that being a Superman fan and wanting to watch both of these shows and being very interested in the ideas of both, I wouldn't want to have to keep up with two different Kryptonian continuities on TV at the same time. I think that would be really weird, but I also think that it would be a bit of a missed opportunity, because if you can't go new DC universe, and again, I just think that would be good for those movies. If you can't go new DC universe screen, the next best thing would be to do Supergirl. I mean to do the Supergirl continuity, and maybe even have her guest star in it every now and again. How cool of a coup would it be to put both of these shows out at exactly the same time? Neither one is a spin-off of the other. They both happen exactly at the same time. We just expect folks will be interested in the Krypton stuff, and we're going to give you two shows right out the gate. And at the same time as we're showing you Supergirl having to cope with life on Earth. Now, we know that with this version, she doesn't just suddenly show up on Earth. She's been there for a while, and has a secret identity and all that, I think, is what I've read. But it would be really interesting if, at the same time, we could inform who she is as a character with this Krypton stuff, and maybe start it when she's a kid, or even let it be the same actress and let her be a teenager and let her just be a recurring character instead of the main character in that show. That would be really neat. I've not seen a lot of things like that before. I don't think I've ever seen two shows starting at the exact same time in the same continuity. I don't know. It's a huge risk, but it would be really neat to see. I think it would be less of a risk, though, if they weren't broadcast TV, if you put them streaming, you know, in the first place. How do I feel about David Goyer? Well, I keep saying that we need new blood in the movies. I keep saying that I don't love that he got to that he's getting to kind of reboot Batman again, and that he got to do Superman, and it's, you know, so much in the same kind of tone and style as the Nolan movies. It would have been nice to get some fresh blood and get some new sensibilities in there. Having said that, I just saw the Constantine pilot, really liked it, and yeah, he had a co-writer on that, but he's involved, and some of those ideas might have been him. I thought that was really good. I'm not gonna say, oh no, it's gonna be bad, or I don't want to see it just because it's Goyer, especially if he brings in some of that Man of Steel stuff, because I want to see that. I want to see that stuff played with. I think it's really interesting, good, solid science fiction. So yeah, I'm okay with it. Just on the principle of the thing. Just hearing about it in the first place, that you know, Goyer could be the right guy for it. Anyway, that's all I have to say about it right now. I hope it's happening. That is a big deal to me. Last Days of Krypton is one of my favorite novels. I really hope they go to this a lot. I kind of hope the whole show is based on this. If it's not Man of Steel, and there's no way it'll be Man of Steel, but I'm pretty sure. If it's not Man of Steel, even if it is in the same continuity as the new Supergirl show, which I really hope that's what they end up doing with it, then it would be really cool if they made a lot of this their Krypton lore, because this is really Kevin J. Anderson does a really good job in this of fleshing out the culture of Krypton and making all the politics work and giving us a really fascinating culture that is very different from our own, but has a lot of really interesting parallels to the various cultures in the past, especially fallen empires. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. What do you folks think about this Krypton show? Is it time? Is this something you want to see, or do you agree with me that this should be a set number of seasons kind of show, maybe shorter seasons, maybe not even on broadcast television? What do you think about that notion? And what do you think about the idea of this and Supergirl on at the same time, but they have nothing to do with each other? Leave your comments. Looking forward to reading them. I am Captain Logan, and this concludes today's Captain's Log.